Welcome to this presentation of the Code of Professional Conduct for Ohio Educators. Ohio is nationally known as a state that produces high-quality educators and recognizes that its practicing educators hold themselves to high standards. This presentation reviews the 8 principles of professional conduct that were adopted by the State Board of Education and provide the framework for professional conduct for all Ohio educators. Educators are entrusted by the public with the responsibility of providing a high-quality education to every student. Through various roles, these professionals devote themselves to providing a safe and nurturing environment in which all students can learn. In alignment with the standards for Ohio educators and the Ohio Academic Content Standards for students, our state's educators strive for excellence through high expectations that they hold for themselves and their students. The professional conduct of every educator affects attitudes towards the profession. In essence, educators are trustees of the profession and share with the broader community the responsibility of providing high-quality public education. Aware of the importance of maintaining the confidence and trust of students, parents, colleagues, and the public, Ohio educators maintain the highest degree of professional conduct for themselves and their peers. If an educator is reported to the Ohio Department of Education for an allegation of unprofessional conduct made by a principal, parent, teacher, student, superintendent, or community member, the department will determine if an investigation is warranted and whether the State Board of Education has jurisdiction to investigate the matter pursuant to Section 3319.311 of the Ohio Revised Code. If it is determined that an investigation is warranted, a thorough investigation would be conducted pursuant to Section 3319.311 of the Ohio Revised Code, at which time all evidence, including aggravating and mitigating circumstances, will be fully examined to determine whether the allegation can be substantiated. If an allegation is reported and it turns out to be a false allegation or unsubstantiated, all the information obtained in the case file will be sealed 2 years after the investigation is concluded in accordance with Section 3319.311 of the Ohio Revised Code. If the results of an investigation warrant initiating an action under Section 3319.31 of the Ohio Revised Code, an educator is entitled to all due process rights afforded pursuant to Chapter 33 and Chapter 119 of the Ohio Revised Code and Chapter 3301 of the Ohio Administrative Code. Ohio Revised Code Section 3319.313 places the obligation on superintendents or heads of schools as described in this section to make reports of educator misconduct in certain situations. Failing to promptly make these required reports can result in professional discipline and/or criminal charges. Furthermore, educators in the state of Ohio are mandatory reporters of child abuse and neglect. When an educator has reasonable cause to suspect child abuse or neglect, they must immediately make a report of child abuse or neglect to a children's services agency or a county or municipal peace officer. Upon a determination that the results of an investigation warrant the State Board of Education to impose a disciplinary action pursuant to Section 3319.31 of the Ohio Revised Code, the State Board may impose an appropriate penalty within the presumptive range on a case-by-case basis as set forth in these disciplinary guidelines, unless the aggravating and mitigating factors in an individual case warrant a penalty outside the presumptive range. The range of disciplinary actions are presumptions and may include a letter of admonishment, consent agreement, limitation of a license, suspension of a license, revocation of a license, or denial of a license. The terms suspension, revocation, and denial shall mean any length of suspension, revocation, or denial, including permanent revocation or permanent denial. A license may be suspended or limited pursuant to a consent agreement or State Board resolution. A complete explanation of the types of disciplinary actions can be accessed through the Department of Education's website, education.ohio.gov. Search keywords disciplinary actions. Let's take a look at those 8 principles educators hold as the fundamental beliefs of maintaining professional conduct. These principles apply to all educators licensed by the State Board of Education. Each principle includes a presumptive range of applicable disciplinary actions for the misconduct. In other words, it is presumed that a particular misconduct will have a disciplinary action that falls within the range of disciplinary actions for that particular misconduct. However, there can be aggravating and/or mitigating factors that require a different disciplinary action. Each case is considered in light of all evidence and factors to determine the appropriate disciplinary action. The principles apply only to licensure issues rather than employment issues. For example, tardiness, on its own, would be an example of an employment issue and not educator misconduct. Number 1 tells us that educators will behave as professionals, realizing that their actions reflect directly on the status and substance of the education profession. An educator serves as a positive role model to both students and adults and is responsible for preserving the dignity and integrity of the teaching profession and for practicing the profession according to the highest ethical standards. Conduct unbecoming to the profession includes, but is not limited to, the following actions: failing to adhere to the Licensure Code of Professional Conduct for Ohio educators, committing any violation of state or federal laws, statutes, or rules, although the conduct may not have resulted in a criminal charge, indictment, prosecution, or conviction. This does not include traffic violations. Violating local, state, or federal procedures related to the security of standardized tests, test supplies, or resources. Other actions include disparaging a colleague, peer, or other school personnel while working in a professional setting on the basis of race or ethnicity, socioeconomic status, gender, national origin, sexual orientation, political or religious affiliation, physical characteristics, age, disability, or English language proficiency. Failing to complete a criminal background check as required by state or federal law, being disciplined by another state educational entity or other professional licensing board or entity for unethical conduct, and using technology to intentionally host or post improper or inappropriate material that could reasonably be accessed by the school community. Number 2, educators shall maintain a professional relationship with all students at all times, both in and out of the classroom. An educator's responsibility includes nurturing the intellectual, physical, emotional, social, and civic potential of all students and providing a safe environment free from harassment, intimidation, and criminal activity. An educator creates, supports, and maintains an appropriate learning environment for all students and fulfills the roles of trusted confidant, mentor, and advocate for students' rights. An educator must serve as a champion against child abuse and be cognizant of student behaviors that suggest abuse or neglect. Conduct unbecoming includes, but is not limited to, the following actions: committing any act of sexual abuse of a student or minor, or engaging in inappropriate sexual conduct with a student or minor. Committing any act of cruelty to children or an act of child endangerment, for example, physical abuse, mental injury, or emotional abuse. Soliciting, encouraging, engaging, or consummating an inappropriate relationship with a student or minor. Other actions include disparaging a student on the basis of race or ethnicity, socioeconomic status, gender, national origin, sexual orientation, political or religious affiliation, physical characteristics, academic or athletic performance, disability, or English language proficiency. Using inappropriate language, gestures, or signs at any school-related activity, such as racial slurs, biased, lewd, or lascivious expressions. Provoking an altercation between students, or provoking or engaging in a physical altercation with students that is not for the purpose of ensuring the health, safety, and welfare of students. Failing to provide appropriate supervision of students within the scope of the educator's official capacity, which risks the health, safety, and welfare of students or others in the school community. And knowingly contributing to or knowingly failing to intervene in the harassment, intimidation, or bullying of a student, and using technology to promote inappropriate communications with students. Educators shall accurately report information required by the local Board of Education or governing board, state education agency, federal agency, or state or federal law. An educator communicates appropriate representation of facts concerning qualifications for professional practice, student information, school board policy, and other educational matters. An educator must report to the superintendent or designee conduct by a licensed educator that substantially impairs his or her ability to function professionally, or any conduct that is detrimental to the health, safety, and welfare of students. Conduct unbecoming includes, but is not limited to, the following actions: falsifying, intentionally misrepresenting, willfully omitting, or being negligent in reporting information submitted to federal, state, and other governmental agencies, such as professional qualifications, criminal history, and information submitted in the course of an official inquiry or investigation, college or professional development credit and/or degrees, academic awards, and employment history when applying for employment and/or licensure, or when recommending an individual for employment, promotion, or licensure. Falsifying, intentionally misrepresenting, willfully omitting, or being negligent in reporting reasons for absences or leaves. Falsifying, intentionally misrepresenting, willfully omitting, or being negligent in reporting information regarding the evaluation of students and/or personnel. Other actions include intentionally failing to report to superintendent or designee conduct that substantially impairs an educator's ability to function professionally in his or her position, or any conduct that is detrimental to the health, safety, and welfare of students, and intentionally failing to make a mandated report of any violation of state or federal law. Educators shall adhere to federal, state, and local laws and statutes. An educator shall not engage in criminal activity as evidenced by a criminal conviction, guilty plea, finding of guilt, or participation in a court-ordered diversion or treatment in lieu of conviction program. Conduct unbecoming includes, but is not limited to, the following actions: a criminal offense that is an offense of violence, theft, drug abuse, or sexually oriented offense as defined in Ohio Administrative Rule 3301-20-01. For example, murder, rape, drug trafficking, kidnapping, robbery, or felonious assault. A criminal offense that requires an educator to meet the rehabilitation standards as defined in Ohio Administrative Code Section 3301-20-01. For example, assault, passing bad checks, fraud, domestic violence, or possession of drugs. A criminal offense that is not identified as an absolute bar offense or offense requiring rehabilitation pursuant to Ohio Administrative Code Section 3301-20-01, and the offense involves a student, a minor, or an offense involving a school district or school personnel. Other actions include conveying or possessing a deadly weapon or dangerous ordinance in a school safety zone, on school premises, or at a school-related activity unless authorized by state or federal law. And a criminal offense that is not identified as an absolute bar offense or offense requiring rehabilitation pursuant to Ohio Administrative Code Section 3301-20-01, and the offense does not involve a student, a minor, a school district, or school personnel. This does not include traffic violations. Educators shall comply with state and federal laws related to maintaining confidential information. An educator is entrusted with information that could be misused to embarrass or damage a student's reputation or relationship with others. Therefore, the educator has the responsibility to keep information about students confidential unless disclosure serves professional purposes, affects the health, safety, and welfare of students and others, is required by law, or parental permission has been given. An educator maintains the security of confidential information such as academic and disciplinary records, personal confidences, photographs, health and medical information, family statuses, and/or income. Conduct unbecoming includes, but is not limited to, the following actions: willfully or knowingly violating any student confidentiality required by federal or state laws, including publishing, providing access to, or altering confidential student information on district or public websites such as grades, personal information, photographs, disciplinary actions, or individual education plans without parental consent or consent of students 18 years of age and older. And using confidential student, family, or school-related information in a non-professional way, for example, gossip, malicious talk, or disparagement. Educators shall not use, possess, or unlawfully distribute illegal or unauthorized drugs. Educators shall not use alcohol during any school activity involving students, minors, or underage persons. Educators shall not use tobacco during any school activity except in a designated area. Educators shall not furnish, provide, or encourage students or underage persons to use, possess, or unlawfully distribute alcohol, tobacco, illegal, or unauthorized drugs. An educator is entrusted with protecting the health, safety, and welfare of students at any school event. The use of alcohol or illegal or unauthorized drugs causes impairment of professional judgment that may potentially harm others. A professional educator must serve as a positive role model and refrain from the illegal use of tobacco on any school grounds or at any school activity. Conduct unbecoming includes, but is not limited to, the following actions: being under the influence of, possessing, using, or consuming illegal or unauthorized drugs, being on school premises in official capacity, such as teaching, coaching, supervising, or conferencing, or at any school activity involving students, minors, or underage persons while under the influence, possessing, or consuming alcoholic beverages. Furnishing or providing tobacco, alcohol, or illegal or unauthorized drugs to any student, minor, or underage person. Being on school premises or at any school activity involving students, minors, or underage persons while using tobacco, except in a designated area. And promoting the use of steroids, stimulants, or nutritional supplements to accelerate physical growth or contribute to the control of weight loss or weight gain to enhance physical performance. Educators shall ensure the school property, public funds, or fees paid by students or the community are not used for personal gain. Educators shall not make decisions based upon gifts, gratuities, favors, or the socioeconomic status of parents, family members, community members, or businesses. An educator is entrusted with public funds and school property in the course of performing job duties and maintains a high level of honesty, accuracy, and accountability to ensure that institutional privileges are not used for personal gain. An educator maintains integrity with students, colleagues, parents, families, community, or businesses when accepting gifts, gratuities, or favors. To avoid bias or prejudice, an educator needs to ensure that decisions made about students or school policy are not negatively influenced by the socioeconomic status of parents, family members, community members, or businesses. Conduct unbecoming includes, but is not limited to, the following actions: soliciting students or parents of students to purchase equipment, supplies, or services, or to participate in activities that financially benefit the educator without notifying the superintendent or designee and/or not in accordance with local board policy. Accepting gifts from vendors or potential vendors for personal use or gain exceeding $25 in value. Tutoring students in one's district for profit without notifying the superintendent or designee and/or not in accordance with local board policy. Coaching and/or promoting athletic or artistic camps, off-season leagues in one's district for profit without notifying the superintendent or designee and/or not in accordance with local board policy. Failing to account for funds related to school activities collected from students, parents, family members, community members, staff, or peers in accordance with local board policy. Commingling public or school-related funds with personal funds or checking accounts, and submitting fraudulent requests. Educators shall fulfill all of the terms and obligations detailed in their employment contract with the local Board of Education or educational agency for the duration of the contract. An educator knows and understands the rights and responsibilities as outlined in the employment contract and adheres to the terms and conditions of the agreement by fulfilling responsibilities and duties required of the position. Conduct unbecoming includes, but is not limited to, the following actions: abandoning the contractual agreement for professional services without prior release from the contract by the Board of Education or designee according to Ohio Revised Code section 3319.15. Willfully refusing to perform services and duties required by the contract except as outlined in the Ohio Revised Code chapter 4117. And violating or interfering with due process as outlined in the contractual agreement. Each professional conduct case is examined on a case-by-case basis. The disposition of each case is subject to a range of disciplinary actions, including a letter of admonishment, a consent agreement, or a disciplinary hearing to determine whether a license or application should be limited, suspended, revoked, or denied. Educators should use the 8 principles in the Licensure Code of Professional Conduct for Ohio educators as guidelines for their professional conduct and utilize common sense in and out of the workplace. Educators are entitled to certain due process rights prior to discipline being imposed. Educators should be familiar with these rights anytime they are subject of a professional conduct case. Thank you for participating and learning more about Ohio's Professional Code of Conduct. If you have questions that have not been covered by the content in this presentation, please contact the Office of Professional Conduct at 614-466-5638.